Wow, okay. Sonic Origins, the new and improved collection of Sonic's first 4 major outings, came out 1 year ago to fairly mixed reception, especially on PC, but skewed positive overall. For many, it was the definitive way to play these classic titles officially, and while that was certainly the goal of the project, for just as many people, there were too many setbacks to overlook. A list of inconsistencies between original games and these new ones, glitches that never existed before, undercooked bonus content, a crippling Steam performance for half the users, and an expensive price tag after delisting the older versions, making this your primary option. Now, after a full year, the Origins Plus expansion has arrived, advertising a playable Amy Rose, 12 Game Gear titles, and a patch for everything else. So, does this fix what was wrong with the base game? Is Sonic Origins finished now? No, not really. It's definitely an improvement. Things were amended, making this a better product than what we had, but the majority of complaints from day one are still here, with a few new ones. Like I was saying, let's start with the price. Origins was $40 at launch, erring on the expensive side for a quartet of 90-minute pixel games from the 90s. I was okay with it because I like them all, but it was hard to not see it as a touch greedy when compared to the industry standard. Worsened by the $45 deluxe edition that offered nothing more than a few music tracks, bonus missions, and the ability to zoom in on the menu islands. All features minor enough to not be worth the money, but just tempting enough to reach for those 3 wacky digits. Well, now they have lowered the price of the normal game to $30 and are selling the Plus Edition at $40, which includes all deluxe DLC. That's great for people buying it now as they get more content at a lower price. But if you already own Origins, you have to buy the $10 Plus expansion, double dipping into DLC you already own for a grand total of $50 to $55 across both purchases. Instead of being rewarded as a loyal fan who bought it at launch with a free upgrade, you're actually penalized by paying $10 more than the oblivious newcomer. $15 if you bought Deluxe back then. Nice. These are not big numbers, but the principle at play is backwards. I'm shocked that the no-brainer classic collection of beloved titles is this remarkably stingy compared to the experimental full-priced Sonic Frontiers with massive content updates all free of charge. It's wild. And what do we get for those 10 extra dollars? Playable Amy. That's the big appeal of this update. They had originally advertised new playable characters in the trailers, and now we finally have one. And I think it's great that she's being included in more classic outings. It's a great retroactive addition to see her in games that she never existed in. Her sprite is pretty good. She gets unique ones in all the special stages, menus, and endings, although her death expression looks horrified. She combos well with a lot of stage palettes. Wacky Workbench Past is her color scheme. It's her playstyle that may come across underwhelming. For all intents and purposes, she is a modified Sonic with a bigger, longer-lasting insta-shield that doesn't give iframes. Or maybe it did, what the? So shield enemies have to be hit while their spikes are rotated slightly off axis to escape damage, killing things that Sonic never could safely, except for Bubbles, he's still a demon. You can hit items from underneath, you don't have to get as close to make contact, and it can destroy bosses that were normally out of range. The Death Egg robot is a joke now, caution be gone. The only boss made more difficult is the Egg Gravitron, since you don't have the iframes to bypass the hitbox. Her other ability is a weaker drop dash where she swings her hammer for about 2 seconds. This is kinda cool because she isn't rolling, so you can go uphill without any resistance, something a normal drop dash doesn't have, giving these games a touch higher pace. Just be sure to release before going through a loop, because she can't scale it. You can rapidly go back and forth to reposition yourself, which isn't that handy on the ground, but it can be done in midair too if you run off a ledge. Although not in Sonic 3 for some reason, come on Origins. It also caps your speed back to normal when using speed shoes or a super form, so keep that in mind. It can break a few walls that Sonic and Tails never could, helping her playthrough stand out a bit more in Sonic 3. And lastly, she can toss hammers all over the place in her hyper form to add some chaos, which is adorable, I have to admit. Watching certain bosses that used to take a long time crumble in seconds is a fun feeling. Before his entrance animation is done, I've already eviscerated that large, bald man. She's technically called Super Amy since you need the Super Emeralds for it, only achievable in Sonic 3 of course, but she has a regular super form for the Chaos Emeralds too. The game just doesn't tell you. So it's not that she doesn't have good abilities. I thoroughly enjoyed my time playing as her. It's that her primary moveset is too similar to Sonic's to have the same impact that Knuckles and Tails have, where their methods of traversal are completely unique. Or how franchise-defining the drop dash was when Mania came out. There's nothing like that here. She's got no hammer bounce, hover spin, double jump, nothing. And I'm someone who doesn't typically play these games as anyone other than Sonic, so this doesn't really bother me. I don't even like using the spin dash in Sonic 1. Yeah, I'm that guy. But to charge people $10 for a character's first official classic appearance and it's a borderline reskin, I can see why there would be disappointment. Of course, that's not all you get for the Plus expansion. We have 12 emulated Game Gear titles that you will never finish. I heard some horror stories about this. Poor audio, frame rate, resolution. I was frightened booting up Sonic 1. And yeah, the Sega intro is crusty, slowdown comes and goes, but that's how the Game Gear was. The controls are at least responsive and the presentation bearable. Maybe it wasn't as bad as they made it out to be. Let's load up Sonic 2 next and... Okay, yeah, I see the problem. It would seem that not all emulation is created equal. This game's audio was so much louder than the first. That intro was a tank-level jump scare, only bit-crushed and air-fried. The audio in general has a weird oscillation effect to simulate stereo, so the sound effects are all bouncing back and forth between ears while the music is trying to compete for space doing the same. But then if you take damage, the music goes down the middle for a second, and if there are a bunch of sound effects at once, some pan while others don't, it's really distracting. You have to change your computer's output audio to mono if you want to take away the pain, but then a new problem comes up in the volume fluctuating during those same intervals. Every game is also trapped in this box, never reaching the screen borders, and that doesn't bother me, but it's weird that there's no way to change the size. And like the rest of the collection, the image quality is not razor sharp. It's quite blurry on any HD display. Don't look at me like that, Sonic, I don't know. And there still aren't any CRT filters yet to try and disguise that blurriness as a retro style either. The start button is put on Y and triangle and has no way to be remapped. That took me a sec. A and X is still your general selection button, except for Sonic Chaos, where only B and circle can select your character. Then it's back to normal. I just don't get it. Sonic Blast didn't do this, even though it also had a character select. Then again, it also has the most terrifying Sega jingle I've ever heard. I think I just met the devil. What legitimately bothers me about these emulations is the input lag. This is also not created equal because most games are perfect in their response time. Sonic 1, Drift 1, although not Drift 2, Spinball, Tails Sky Patrol Adventure, Labyrinth, Blast, and Mean Bean Machine don't have any significant delay. Sonic 2, Chaos, Drift 2, and Triple Trouble are all cursed with it. Combine that with the frame rate issues, Spinball in particular being the abomination of the bunch, and it only makes for an even starker contrast with the smooth Genesis remasters. I'm not expecting them to rebuild the handhelds in a new engine, but some better emulation is required to retain an audience. The fact that Sonic, Labyrinth, and Blast are the best performing games on here is a fourth-degree burn to logic and morality. What I don't understand, though, is why we only have the Game Gear versions of everything. While most of these are standalone titles, some are the inferior ports of console games. Sonic 1, 2, and Chaos were all made for the Master System with a much wider screen resolution and more consistent frame rate. On the Game Gear, you can hardly see where you need to go, getting blindsided constantly. It's gonna sour the impression for a lot of people. Which is unfortunate because games like Sonic 1 are surprisingly good, rivaling its 16-bit counterpart in a lot of ways. Playing these cut-down ports is a disservice to their quality. Oh cool, a slope, I run down those a lot. Oh, these absolutely need to be included, just as an option for what version you want. There's no way that a AAA company doesn't have the resources to properly emulate a few 8-bit side-scrollers, so ball's in their court. So yeah, the Plus expansion, not amazing. Amy is a good addition, and having the Game Gear titles is better than not having them, but it could have been better, could have been free. That would have softened the blow. Barring the bonus content though, how does the main game fare? Because I did say that they made improvements and I want to give proper credit to that. Roll locking has been patched. In Sonic 1 and 2, if you spin or drop dash, your control would be locked, unable to move in midair after a jump. Now we have constant flexibility like in Mania, and it goes a long way to making these already fun games even better. Tails' AI is no longer broken as a companion. That firestorm in Angel Island doesn't teleport you after. You can reach this special ring area hidden in the wall again. again. All 4 characters are playable in all 4 games, so Knuckles was added into CD, a treasure hunting game that he thrives in. There are some extra settings you can toggle in the Sonic 1 level select, like the spin dash, item boxes, and a 7th Chaos Emerald. They've even added a 65-page manual to the title screen. Now, this is not something you see anymore and didn't have to be included, so they have my respect for doing this. It's got all the controls, game elements, characters, screenshots. Some are pretty blurry, but I was pleased. Although despite referring to the special stage as blue spheres in the menu, the manual straight up calls them blue balls. Wow, they just went for it, didn't they? Blue balls remaining. Oh, there's even a 2 next to it. This is so weird because the 90s manual didn't even say that. This was a modern decision to call it that. Technique, touch all the blue No. No, there's no way. I mean, it's funny, don't change it, but I can't believe this. In spite of all these changes, however, a majority are still here. Some aspects are really tight with a lot of care given to them, while others are neglected in the exact same area. Every game is still slightly blurry. That crisp pixel art imagery that we crave isn't quite here yet. Because the physics run a little faster in these retro engine remakes, some scripting can go wrong, like in Starlight Zone, where I try going through a loop like always and it randomly breaks. Sonic 3 has quite a few places where this can happen, and I don't know what's causing it. You can't quit out of a special stage, it only gives you a continue option. Credits can't be skipped except in Sonic 3. Result screen tallies can't be sped up, which is hilarious because some of the Game Gear titles have that by design. Super transformations are activated by pressing Y or A in Sonic 3, but in Sonic 2 you have to press up on the D-pad with Y or A. CD's time attack only lets you play as Sonic, although in the My Data and Rankings tab under Museum you are able to play every stage as any character to try and beat your best time. It's just a rather out-of-the-way menu to navigate towards. Sonic 1's level select is the only one to have bonus options. Granted, it's the most primitive in the collection, so it makes sense to be the one playing catch-up, but some kind of extras menu for the others would have been cool too. And yes, you have to input a level select cheat code to replay stages in Sonic 1 and 2, instead of having a conspicuous menu for it like the mobile ports, or any normal game. And you can only back out of this menu in Sonic 3, otherwise you have to pick a level and quit out that way. I feel silly harping on such small details, but why don't all the games have the same features? It's weird. Like how Sonic 1 bosses have invincibility when they fly in, so you can't get a bunch of free hits, but then the Palm Tree Panic boss still lets you camp behind him for an instant win. CD's audio is still inconsistent as well. The vocal tracks are so much louder than everything. The result screen is quieter, no voice lines, no 3-minute I'm outta here, and I ran into some strange glitches with Amy. $10. She also doesn't get to see the good ending, so collecting all the time stones is narratively meaningless. Then again, it's still out of sync and silent, so I guess I'm not missing much. Marble Garden's intro is still broken due to the higher speed. This spring launches me right into these spikes that I shouldn't be able to reach. And Sonic 3's music being muffled, erratic, partially replaced, and compressed has not been changed. There is a noticeable degradation in quality coming from any of its predecessors. They didn't fix this sound effect either. My biggest issue with all of this is that everything I listed comes from these remasters. If there was a way to play properly emulated versions of the original games unchanged, I would be a lot softer on Origins. But because they delisted the old ones and then threw in a classic mode that is not the original games, but rather the same ones in Anniversary only cropped with returning game overs, means I have no official way to play those originals in a modern release. They don't even have to change classic mode, just add a third one called Original Mode that gives you the exact game from the era. They're clearly not against using emulation, so that would be an easy win. And while we're at it, we still can't mix and match settings either. There is no widescreen with 1-ups mode, which is completely within their power to add, because if they're able to crop Anniversary mode and bring lives back, then they can just as easily uncrop it and bring lives back. That would actually be an easier job. Look, I'm cool with the coin system and all, but I am never going to run out. I have nothing to spend them on anymore. They added a new surprise tab for Sonic's birthday, but there's nothing to buy. It's just a mediocre mission list with a nice illustration under it. We need something else to do with these coins. I still think the islands have a lot of potential for customization. Skins, animations, items, weather conditions. Maybe fixing the models to not vibrate in place, or how you can see their animation stop for a moment when they reset. It's kind of choppy, like a GIF, or GIF, sorry Shadow. Look how mad Sonic is at this chicken. Oh, never mind, guess he's over it. I know all of these issues are minute grains of sand when you look at them individually, but at the end of the day, I'm sitting on a beach. No, this is not nearly as bad of a remaster as Colors Ultimate, or even Sonic Adventure DX. I'd say this is more like Adventure 2 Battle. It makes a few solid improvements, brings the game to a wider audience, and for many, is the best way to play it. But anyone who had the original knows that things were broken on the way over and still have yet to be fixed. I can have fun with Origins, a pretty similar amount to playing the originals, sometimes more. Sonic 1 and 2 in particular are fairly safe, and barring the sound mixing, so is CD. My opinion on this collection has only improved from last year. If I had no choice but to play this version of the classics for the rest of my life, I wouldn't be too upset, assuming I could mod Sonic 3's music back in. It's a decent collection of some great games that casual audiences will be totally fine with. The widescreen is a massive selling point. The playable characters give everyone their own flavor, retrying special stages is cool even if a bit busted in Sonic 2, and the engine improvements that did make it through are much appreciated for fans new and old alike. I just know that they could have done a lot better. Technology has come so far that not being able to accurately port over 30-year-old two-dimensional games is well below the bar of expectations and adds further insult to the industry injury of poor remakes. Maybe one day this will be the undisputed classic collection, but for now, it's still not quite finished. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, don't forget to check out the next episode whenever I post it, which will probably be soon. Alright. See ya.